On May 3, 2007, in Praia da Luz, Portugal, Kate McCann enters their vacation apartment to check on her kids. 3-year-old Madeleine's bed is empty. Kate's scream shatters the night. Madeleine's gone. Chaos erupts. In 2025, the case remains unsolved. Christian Bruckner, the prime suspect, nears release. What does he know? Where is Madeleine? The mystery of the 3-year-old's disappearance lingers, haunting her family and the world. For years, the world focused on what was missing. Now, it turns toward who might have taken her. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann was once a story of loss, of a vanished child and a family frozen in time. The timeline, the unlocked door, the 30-minute gap, these pieces have been examined endlessly. But in 2025, that familiar frame cracked. Not because of new DNA or a body or a confession, but because of a film, Madeleine McCann. Inside the Secret Evidence, a documentary released by The Sun in June 2025 did not break the case. But it shifted it. Drawing on material from a 2016 police raid in Braunschweig, Germany, the film revealed a disturbing cache. Dozens of USB drives, handwritten stories about abductions, photos of children, and witness accounts that investigators had quietly compiled over years. For the first time, the public saw what the police had seen. A pattern, a profile, and a name, Christian Bruckner. He was not a suspect in 2007. He was not interviewed, not questioned, not noticed. But when German prosecutors officially named him a suspect in 2020, and when details from the 2016 raid emerged, his location near the Ocean Club on the night Madeleine vanished, his car moved days later, his writings describing control, chloroform, and a blonde 4-year-old, the world looked again. This was not rumor. It was documented, not theory. Evidence. Still circumstantial, but haunting. The documentary added emotional weight to the facts. It revealed the 2008 music festival anecdote, where a friend recalled Bruckner saying, "She didn't scream," before abruptly fleeing. It revisited the hard drives found beneath a dead dog, the child-sized swimsuits, the self-portraits with balaclavas. It gave shape to the fear many had buried. That someone like him, with that history, could have been so close, so unnoticed. Yet no charges have been filed in connection with Madeleine's disappearance. The evidence remains chilling, but incomplete. For every disturbing detail, there is still a missing link. But the narrative has changed. No longer are we only tracing the steps of a missing child. We are now tracing the life of a man who may hold the answer. To understand the investigation's present, and its most pressing questions, we must go back to the time of the disappearance of Madeleine. In April 2007, Kate and Jerry McCann, both 39-year-old doctors from England, arrived at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz with their 3 children. Madeleine, just 3 years old, had a rare coloboma in her right eye, a detail that would soon become tragically symbolic. The family joined a group of close friends known as the Tapas 7, settling into a relaxed routine. Beach by day, shared dinners by night, and a simple check-in system for their sleeping kids every 30 minutes. Trust came easily. The resort felt quiet, safe, familiar. So safe, in fact, that the balcony door to apartment 5A was often left unlocked during dinner, allowing parents to slip in silently for quick peeks at their children. No one questioned it. No alarms were raised. At 8:30 p.m. on May 3, a friend checked in and said, "All is well." But someone else had been watching, waiting. At 10 p.m., Kate McCann rises from the tapas table, the soft clinking of wine glasses and murmured conversation fading behind her as she walks the familiar 50 meters back to the apartment. The resort is still, the night air calm, broken only by the gentle rustling of palm trees and the distant hush of waves. She enters through the balcony door, still unlocked, just as they had left it, and steps into the dim, quiet space that should be filled with peace. The twins are asleep in their cots, their breathing steady, undisturbed. But when she turns to Madeleine's bed, her heart stutters. The blanket is pushed back. The favorite cuddle cat is gone. The bed is empty. For a brief moment, the room holds its breath with her. Confusion sharpens into dread. She whispers her daughter's name, once, twice louder, then bolts through the apartment, checking the bathroom, the closet, under the bed, behind the curtains. No trace. Now panic floods her chest like ice water, and the words tear from her throat with a desperation that will echo across years. Madeleine's gone. Someone's taken her? The scream slices through the night, shattering the quiet. Back at the restaurant, chairs scrape and glasses clatter. Jerry runs first, the Tapas 7 close behind, feet pounding the stone path. When they reach the apartment, they find Kate frantic, searching again and again, hoping, begging, that maybe, somehow, it isn't true. Jerry checks the balcony, the garden, calls Madeleine's name into the dark. Nothing. The group fans out, flashlights cutting through bushes, alleyways, hedges. Resort guests begin to appear, and drawn by the scream, and soon dozens are searching, voices overlapping, urgency rising. Staff comb through stairwells and storage rooms. The pool is checked, but the child with the coloboma in her eye is nowhere. Kate clutches her daughter's blanket to her chest, sobbing, her body trembling with shock. Jerry tries to stay composed, but his voice shakes, his hands refuse to be still. The twins, impossibly, remain asleep, untouched by the chaos exploding around them. And now, what had felt like a thoughtful routine, the 30-minute checks, the short distance, the friendly safety of the resort, twists into a knot of regret. The unlocked door, so ordinary, now feels like betrayal. The night, once filled with light and laughter, has turned cold. The apartment is no longer a sanctuary. It is a crime scene. Madeleine is gone. And the world, from that moment forward, will never be the same. Within the hour, the wail of police sirens cuts through the silence of Praia da Luz, blue lights flashing against the white walls of the Ocean Club. Officers from the Polícia Judiciária step into apartment 5A, now stripped of its innocence. The space that once cradled sleeping children is eerily quiet, but no longer peaceful, just hollow, heavy. The unlocked balcony door is one of the first things they notice, swinging slightly in the breeze, a chilling detail that suggests someone entered while the parents dined 50 meters away. But by the time police arrive, the scene is already compromised. Dozens of footsteps, friends, staff, guests, have trampled through, well-meaning but disastrous for forensic integrity. No one stopped them. No one preserved anything. Evidence, if it ever existed, is now smeared under panic and bare feet. Officers begin questioning Kate and Jerry. The tone is clinical. Kate answers through tears, her voice raw, explaining the bedtime routine, the story, the blanket. Jerry tries to stay composed, walking them through the check-ins, the timings, the distance between table and door. But the officer's eyes narrow. The questions sharpen. Why leave the door unlocked? Why not take turns eating inside? Why trust a system so casual? The McCanns, crushed by fear and doubt, insist the resort felt safe until it wasn't. Outside, the initial search begins, but it's fragmented and uncoordinated. Guests and staff scatter across the grounds, flashlights sweeping gardens, alleys, stairwells, and beaches. Police bring dogs, but too late. No roadblocks are set. No cars stopped. The first golden hours slip away. Somewhere, the trail grows cold. The Tapas 7 join the search, their faces pale, their confidence in the check-in system cracking under the weight of what-ifs. Kate clutches Madeleine's blanket like a lifeline, her pleas turning hoarse as she begs the officers to act faster. Jerry paces, demanding answers, direction, anything. But there are no leads, no ransom note, no forced entry. Just an empty bed. A door left open. A child gone without a sound. And a resort that, hours earlier, buzzed with laughter and safety, now suffocates under the weight of one unbearable question. How could this happen? Dawn breaks over Praia da Luz on May 4, 2007, casting a pale light across a resort that has not slept. But peace does not come with the sunrise. The Ocean Club, once filled with the hum of vacationers, now echoes with tension. The Polícia Judiciária arrive in greater numbers, their presence more visible than coordinated. Apartment 5A is swarmed, officers in plainclothes, reporters whispering at the gate, neighbors watching from balconies. The balcony door, still swinging slightly in the breeze, becomes their starting point. It had been left unlocked for convenience, a detail that now feels like confession. They note it carefully, suggesting the possibility that an intruder slipped in during the 30-minute check gap. But almost instantly, The investigation begins to unravel. No one closes off the apartment. There is no perimeter, no control. Guests, staff, friends, even those searching with good intentions, move in and out of the space. Footsteps crisscross the tile. Hands brush doorknobs and window frames. Vital evidence, fingerprints, fibers, even scent, is slowly erased by panic and the failure of protocol. The officers don't dust for prints immediately. They don't secure entry points. They don't record every movement. The scene is already slipping through their fingers. Outside, reporters are beginning to arrive. The story is growing. But inside the investigation, there is silence, uncertainty, and missed opportunity. Search dogs are finally brought in. They sniff the apartment, the beds, the twins. Madeleine's scent leads them through the garden and out to a nearby parking lot near a small church, then stops cold. That sudden end suggests the abductor had a car. A getaway. But still, no roadblocks are ordered. No cars stopped at the resort exits. No border alerts issued. The hours bleed away, and with them, the trail. Kate clutches Madeleine's blanket, her eyes hollow, answering questions between sobs. Jerry stands near the door, pressing the officers to expand their search, to move faster, to act like time matters. The Tapas 7 recount the evening again, their routine now under quiet suspicion. They insist nothing was missed. Nothing felt strange. But the officers, untrained for high-profile child abductions, they photograph the room, but miss what matters. They take statements, but offer no direction. They note the absence of forced entry, but never ask how easily silence can slip through an open door. What should have been a sealed crime scene has become a shared trauma. And by the time the sun reaches its peak, the police are already behind. Madeleine is still gone. And so is the chance to catch whoever took her. Kate and Jerry McCann, both 39 years old, find themselves seated across from officers in a stark, fluorescent-lit room that feels more like an interrogation chamber than a place of help. Their grief is still raw, eyes swollen, voices shaking, but now it's being dissected. The questions begin gently, then harden. Why was the balcony door left unlocked? Why dine 50 meters away while 3 children slept alone? Who decided on the check-in system? Kate, her voice brittle, explains it again. They took turns, every 30 minutes. The resort felt safe. Praia da Luz felt like a bubble where nothing bad could happen. Jerry tries to steady the narrative, recalling the 9 p.m. check when Madeleine was asleep, blanket tucked, the twins breathing softly. But the officers' faces tighten. Pens scratch across notepads. Doubt creeps in, and it shows. Outside the room, the Tapas 7 are called in one by one. They describe the routine. 8:30 p.m., check complete. All was well. 9 p.m., Jerry saw Madeleine asleep. 10 p.m., Kate found the bed empty. But the half-hour gap becomes a wedge. Did someone miss a check? Was the door truly unlocked, or left open wider than they remember? Under pressure, memories blur. The officers press harder. Kate is asked, flatly, whether she and Jerry argued that night. Whether the children had been sedated. The insinuation is a slap. She stares blankly. Jerry's jaw clenches, his voice grows cold. They try to defend themselves, but they can see it now. The investigation has turned. The Portuguese police, unaccustomed to foreign media frenzy and under immense pressure, begin to look not outward but inward, at the parents. The cultural gap widens. British vacationers, casual and trusting, viewed through the lens of a cautious local force, now grasping for control. The Tapas 7 remain loyal but strained. They corroborate the story, but the cracks, subtle, unintentional, feed suspicion. The unlocked door, once just a convenience, becomes the cornerstone of blame. The room feels smaller. The question's less about what happened, and more about what might have been hidden. Kate clutches Madeleine's blanket in her lap, her fingers digging into the fabric. Jerry pleads for focus on the abductor, not the victims. But suspicion, once planted, rarely fades. And as the interviews drag on, it becomes clear that the family not only lost a child, but may also be losing control of the story. A choice made in trust, in a place that felt safe, has turned into a liability dissected by strangers. The McCanns, desperate for truth, now find themselves navigating not just grief, but accusation. As the investigation stalls, theories begin to swirl like smoke, shifting, elusive, impossible to grasp. The most immediate and plausible assumption is abduction. A stranger slipped in during the check-in gap, taking Madeleine in silence. The unlocked balcony door supports it. The lack of struggle, the still sleeping twins, the untouched apartment, it all suggests a fast, practiced intrusion. But the simplicity of the theory is also its flaw. Who would do such a thing? A local predator? A transient drifter? A member of the resort staff? Without witnesses, without surveillance footage, without a single credible sighting, the theory remains a ghost. And then there is the silence. No ransom note, no demands, no anonymous calls. If it was an abduction, why has no one spoken? The second theory haunts in a different way. That perhaps Madeleine wandered off, slipped through the unlocked door into the night, chasing a sound or a shadow, and vanished by accident. A fall into a pool, a misstep off a rocky ledge. Police scour the beaches, the cliffs, the terrain between apartment and sea, but dogs find nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no body. The theory fades like the tide, possible, but unsupported. And then comes the most controversial possibility, whispered first in back rooms, and soon pressed into interviews. That the parents know more than they admit. That something terrible happened in that apartment, and the scene was carefully reset. Officers, frustrated by the lack of progress and under growing media scrutiny, begin to circle inward. The unlocked door. The check-in system. The short walk to dinner. All now seem suspicious in retrospect. Some question whether the children had been sedated, why they didn't wake during the chaos. The Tapas 7 insist the routine was solid, that no one missed a check, that Madeleine was seen asleep at 9 p.m. But consistency frays under pressure. Small memory gaps are magnified. Cultural misunderstandings, British parenting norms clashing with Portuguese expectations, deepen the divide. The McCanns are horrified. They deny any involvement, their pain exposed and endless. But their grief is no longer enough to clear them. The investigation is rudderless. The apartment offers nothing. No fingerprints, no forced entry, no DNA. The scent trail ends at a nearby church parking lot, but no one saw a car. The police expand the search to nearby towns, but the early hours lost cannot be regained. Theories breed in the void, abduction, accident, cover-up, each more desperate than the last. None confirmed, none disproven. They float above the case like unanswered prayers, dragging Madeleine's name deeper into shadow. With every passing hour, the truth feels further away. And the little girl with the bright eyes becomes not just missing, but myth. By May 5, 2007, the quiet coastal town of Praia da Luz has become unrecognizable. Just 48 hours earlier, it was a sleepy resort with narrow cobbled streets and sunlit courtyards. Now, it is a press battleground. News vans clog every road near the Ocean Club, their satellite dishes towering like vultures circling a wound. Reporters from Portugal, the UK, and international networks pour in, cameras trained unblinking on apartment 5A, the place where 3-year-old Madeleine McCann disappeared without a trace. Her face, with its soft blonde curls, wide gaze, and the rare coloboma in her right eye, explodes across every screen, every paper, every headline. In hours, she becomes a symbol, a mystery, a phenomenon, and her parents, Kate and Jerry, both 39 years old, are thrust into a spotlight they never sought, faces etched in anguish, suddenly carrying the weight of a grieving world. The media storm is relentless. Sympathy swells, but suspicion follows fast behind. The narrative shifts with ruthless speed. The unlocked balcony door, once an overlooked detail, becomes headline fodder. Reporters crowd the gates, snap photos through curtains, shout questions as Kate walks past clutching her daughter's blanket like a shield. Jerry's jaw tightens as he shields his wife with a hand that can no longer protect what matters most. Their grief is now public currency, dissected in front of millions. The coloboma, that tiny mark once known only to family, becomes the most recognizable feature in the world, plastered on posters, billboards, and breaking news graphics. And with every passing hour, the noise grows louder. Sensational theories erupt. Madeleine wandered off into the dark. Madeleine was taken by a stranger. Madeleine was kidnapped by a ring trafficking children across borders. With no body, no witnesses, no trail, the press fills the void with narrative, not fact. The Tappa 7, once just holiday companions, are dragged into the feeding frenzy. Their parenting decisions, their check-in routine, even their body language are analyzed on prime time. The media begins to warp the investigation itself. Leaks appear, half-truths, misquotes, alleged sightings in Spain, in Morocco, in Australia. The Portuguese police, already under strain, are battered by international criticism. Their delays and mistakes are magnified, their competence questioned, their silence portrayed as failure. And amid this storm stand Kate and Jerry, who once believed their daughter's story would be handled with care. Now, microphones are thrust into their faces, cameras chase them through crowds, and every tear, every pause, every word is mined for meaning. Praia da Luz has become a stage, a spectacle. And while the image of Madeleine spreads to every corner of the globe, the truth about what happened to her remains buried beneath the noise. The line between awareness and exploitation blurs, and the very force that could help bring her home becomes the storm that threatens to consume everything in its path. The public's reaction is immediate and merciless. Within days, Kate and Jerry McCann become household names, their faces etched into the global consciousness alongside the image of their missing daughter. But with the spotlight comes judgment, and sympathy does not come alone. The unlocked balcony door becomes a lightning rod not just for the media, but for millions watching around the world. How could they leave her alone? Becomes a rallying cry across online forums, call-in shows, and morning television. The couple's decision to dine just 50 meters away is no longer a footnote. It is dissected, criticized, moralized. The Tappa 7, once invisible in the background of the story, are pulled to the forefront. Friends who had shared meals and laughter-only nights before are now cast as accomplices to neglect. Their parenting is questioned, their check-in system mocked as careless, even dangerous. It does not matter that Praia da Luz had a low crime rate. It does not matter that they believed it was safe. The world has already decided. And for Kate, the condemnation is sharper. As the mother, her pain is politicized, her decisions held under a microscope. Her tearful public appeals, clutching Madeleine's blanket, are met with both heartbreak and suspicion. Some see a grieving woman broken. Others see what they interpret as staged emotion, rehearsed sorrow. Jerry, more controlled in public, becomes a target of a different kind. His composure is mistaken for coldness. His rational tone is spun into detachment. Together, they are scrutinized not as grieving parents, but as potential culprits in their own child's disappearance. The cultural divide deepens the disconnect. British informality around parenting meets Portuguese expectations of protection, and the resulting friction fuels misunderstanding. Local whispers, "Wouldn't happen here," are picked up by international headlines. The Tappa 7, still trying to process the nightmare, are called irresponsible at best, complicit at worst. Their once simple vacation turns into a life sentence of scrutiny. The unlocked door, left open for ease, becomes symbolic, a metaphor for everything the world believes went wrong. Kate, her face growing gaunter with each passing interview, begins to avoid the cameras altogether. Jerry, still trying to lead the search, is accused of orchestrating a hoax. The absence of evidence only deepens the noise. In the silence, people build their own versions of truth. The Tappa 7, though loyal, begin to fracture under the weight. Their names circulate online. Their statements are doubted. Their families are dragged into the chaos. And still, Madeleine is missing. The public's fascination grows, but so does its cruelty. What began as a tragedy is now a debate, a battleground, a mirror reflecting society's hunger to assign blame when answers are out of reach. And in the center of it all stand two parents, not only grieving the loss of a child, but being forced to defend their right to grieve at all. The search for Madeleine McCann, just 3 years old, begins with urgency and grows into something colossal. By May 5, 2007, Praia da Luz is no longer just a town. It becomes a grid to be scarred, a map to be crossed out square by square. Police lead the charge at first, But within hours, volunteers arrive, locals, tourists, strangers moved by the face, now staring out from posters, taped to every bus stop, shop window, and street pole. Her coloboma, that rare flaw in her right eye, becomes a beacon, a mark meant to help find her, a detail no one can forget. Search parties fan out across beaches, ravines, cliffs, abandoned buildings. People comb through fields with sticks, form human chains along the coastline. The dog's ascent leads from the apartment to a church parking lot, then disappears, as if she was swallowed by the night. That clue suggests a car, an exit, a plan, but no one saw anything. No license plate, no stranger, no scream, and the early errors, no roadblocks, no forensic lockdown, no border alert, have already buried the chance to react. The search grows larger, but so does the desperation. Kate and Jerry take their pain to the airwaves. Cameras catch them at their rawest. Kate clutches Madeleine's blanket, as if holding her daughter by memory alone, her voice shaking as she pleads, "Please, if you have her, let her go." Jerry, beside her, tries to steady the message, calling for witnesses, asking for help, but his composure fractures mid-sentence, and the world watches a man unravel under the weight of fatherhood and failure. The public responds. Tips flood in, sightings in Morocco, whispers in Spain, a girl with a British accent in Australia. Each one is followed by hope, and each one dies in silence. False alarms become the new rhythm. Kate and Jerry, losing faith in official efforts, hire private investigators. The Portuguese police, under mounting international scrutiny, continue their work, but now the press swarms every move, critics pick apart every delay, and every briefing is another chance for speculation to outpace fact. Still, the Find Madeleine campaign begins to grow. Posters are translated into dozens of languages. A website is launched. Donations pour in. But even this spark of global support carries its own weight. The campaign raises awareness, yes, but also expectations, theories, demands. And yet, through it all, nothing is found. Not a shoe. Not a strand of hair. Not a trace. The resort that once promised sunshine and safety is now a battleground of grief and confusion. Hope lives here, but it limps. Because each day that ends without her return is another blow, and the world slowly realizes the unthinkable. That a 3-year-old girl may have vanished without leaving anything behind, not even a shadow. Christian Bruckner was born in 1976 in southern Germany. As a teenager, he began showing signs of antisocial behavior that later escalated into a documented pattern of criminal activity across several European countries. By the early 1990s, he had already come into contact with law enforcement due to offenses involving theft and property crimes. In 1994, at just 18 years old, Bruckner left Germany and traveled to Portugal, where he settled in the Algarve, a region known for its tourism and transience. There, he lived in and around resort towns, working intermittently as a handyman and mechanic. Over the years, police records from both Germany and Portugal would later link him to a series of criminal offenses, including burglary, drug possession, and unauthorized possession of firearms. Authorities described him as someone capable of operating under the radar, often without a fixed address, and adept at exploiting gaps in enforcement across borders. People who crossed paths with him recalled two very different sides: a sociable figure in public who could appear helpful or friendly, and a more volatile personality in private. This duality, investigators later noted, made him difficult to track and even harder to predict. In several known cases, he targeted holiday homes and tourist properties, often timing his break-ins during the evening or early night when occupants were away. He would later be connected to thefts involving cash, passports, and electronics, items that could be quickly sold or used to remain mobile. By the early 2000s, his criminal record stretched across Germany, Portugal, and Italy. Despite multiple arrests, Bruckner frequently changed residences and maintained a transient lifestyle. His name appeared in several local investigations, though not always as a suspect. During this time, some allegations against him were dropped or expired under statute limitations, allowing him to remain largely unprosecuted for long stretches. His knowledge of the Algarve area, especially the tourist zones around Luz, was extensive, gained through years of living in the shadows of the holiday economy. It wasn't until years later, through coordinated efforts between German and Portuguese authorities, that Bruckner would be publicly identified as a suspect in an ongoing international investigation involving the 2007 disappearance of a young British child. As of 2025, he has not been formally charged in connection with that case, and he maintains his innocence. By 2005, a German man later identified by authorities as a suspect in an international investigation was living on the outskirts of Praia da Luz, a quiet resort town nestled along Portugal's Algarve coast. He was 29 years old, drifting between temporary jobs and a string of minor offenses. His modest apartment, tucked behind tourist-heavy streets, became his base, close enough to observe, distant enough to hide. Police records from later investigations describe his activities during this time as deliberate and calculated. At night, he reportedly moved through the resort like a shadow, targeting holiday homes left vulnerable by relaxed visitors. Witness accounts and court documents from unrelated cases would later portray him as someone who studied his surroundings, tracking who came and went, and striking when no one was watching. In 2005, a violent assault occurred in the Praia da Luz area involving an elderly woman in her private residence. The case remained unsolved for years, but it resurfaced in 2019, when German authorities reopened a cold case investigation that led to new forensic evidence. Though no charges have been conclusively tried in that case as of 2025, its proximity to Praia da Luz and the methodology involved drew attention. Investigators would later link this unresolved crime to the broader timeline of offenses involving the same suspect, whose criminal record already included burglary, drug possession, and previous convictions in Germany. In 2007, when the McCann family arrived in Praia da Luz for their holiday, the suspect was still living in the region. On the evening of May 3, the night 3-year-old Madeleine McCann disappeared. Cell phone data reportedly placed his mobile device near the Ocean Club resort. Phone records examined years later showed that he received a call around 7:30 p.m., connecting to a tower located close to the McCann's apartment. Though the call itself seemed routine, the timing and location would become a key detail in the ongoing investigation. At the time, however, this information went unnoticed. Authorities later described his presence in Praia da Luz as part of a larger pattern, one involving targeted crimes against tourists, many of whom never filed reports or followed up after returning home. His proximity to the resort, his prior criminal history, and his transient lifestyle complicated efforts to track him. He left the area not long after Madeleine's disappearance, and for years, his name remained absent from public discussion. It wasn't until 2020 that German prosecutors officially named him as a suspect in the Madeleine McCann case. As of 2025, no charges have been filed in connection with her disappearance, and the man maintains his innocence. The investigation remains open. By 2008, a German man later named as a suspect in the Madeleine McCann investigation had left Portugal and resurfaced in the northern German city of Braunschweig. At 32 years old, he purchased a disused industrial property, an abandoned box factory surrounded by overgrown fields and dilapidated walls. He lived out of a camper van parked on site, converting the property into a private compound of sorts, far removed from neighbors and the public eye. Graffiti on one of the factory's crumbling interior walls reportedly read, "My girlfriend lied to me, cheated on me, and made me hate." A glimpse, perhaps, into a mind marked by isolation and resentment. In 2012, he opened a small corner store in the city and lived in the back room, operating on the fringes of town life while keeping a low profile. In 2016, police executed a search warrant at the industrial site, following information connected to an unrelated investigation. According to public reports, the search was triggered by a tip and a discovery made by a local resident's dog, which unearthed a bag containing personal items, wallets, storage devices, and other materials buried near the property. The raid revealed a range of objects, including multiple data drives, children's items such as clothing and toys, and unregistered firearms. Authorities also collected photographs, notes, and what appeared to be coded records. Among the writings, investigators later reported finding references to specific locations in southern Portugal, including a remote reservoir known as the Arade Dam. One of the vehicles previously associated with the suspect, a Jaguar X6, was also recovered during the operation. Registration records showed it had been transferred shortly after May 3, 2007, the night Madeleine McCann went missing. Police examined the vehicle and collected samples for further analysis. Although no direct evidence linked these discoveries to Madeleine's case, the findings raised serious questions about the suspect's movements and possessions during the years he lived in Portugal. The factory site itself contained areas that drew investigators' attention: a shallow depression in the earth, an enclosed room without windows, and various storage compartments. Some of the digital files recovered contained images considered disturbing by prosecutors, but officials emphasized that none provided direct links to the McCann case. Still, the 2016 search cast a wider light on the suspect's lifestyle and reinforced his status as a person of interest. In the years that followed, German prosecutors deepened their investigation, citing what they called concrete evidence, connecting the suspect to the night of Madeleine's disappearance. As of 2025, no charges have been filed against him in relation to the case, and he continues to deny any involvement. The evidence gathered during the 2016 raid remains part of an ongoing inquiry spanning multiple countries. In May 2023, the Arade Dam, an isolated reservoir nestled among rugged hills, about an hour's drive from Praia da Luz, becomes the focus of a large-scale police operation. Unmarked vehicles line the dusty tracks, search dogs patrol the scrub, and forensic tents rise against the scorched Portuguese sky. The location is not chosen at random. German and Portuguese investigators have identified the site as significant in their ongoing investigation into the 2007 disappearance of Madeleine McCann. The suspect at the center of this renewed effort, Christian Bruckner, 47 years old at the time, is known to have visited the dam frequently during his years in Portugal. In previous reports, he had allegedly referred to the area as his little paradise. GPS data recovered from a vehicle linked to him, an old Jaguar X6, suggests it was near the site shortly after Madeleine was reported missing on May 3, 2007. The search is meticulous and resource-heavy. Over several days, investigators dig trenches, take soil samples, and deploy divers into the dark waters. Specialized equipment is brought in to scan beneath the surface. The dam, surrounded by difficult terrain and rarely visited outside of summer months, presents logistical challenges. During earlier searches of properties connected to the suspect, investigators recovered a number of photographs and digital materials, some of which showed him in various locations across southern Portugal. Among them were images reportedly taken near the Arade Dam. Whether the area served as a retreat, a storage site, or something more sinister remains an open question. Police hope the operation will yield crucial evidence: articles of clothing, personal belongings, biological traces, anything that could be forensically linked to Madeleine, who was 3 years old at the time of her disappearance. But by the end of the search, no breakthrough is announced. Soil and organic matter are sent to labs in Germany for analysis, but no definitive conclusions are made public. The dam, once thought to be a quiet refuge, reveals nothing concrete. Its silence deepens the frustration of investigators who have spent years pursuing leads across borders. The suspect is currently serving time in Germany for unrelated offenses, but his expected release in 2025 raises concerns. Authorities fear that, without new charges, he may once again disappear from public reach. While circumstantial links to the dam continue to intrigue investigators, no direct connection to the McCann case has been established. The search ends as it began, with more questions than answers. Nearly 2 decades after Madeleine's disappearance, the Arade Dam holds tight to its secrets, and the investigation remains a race against time. On June 3, 2025, the Algarve once again becomes the center of quiet tension. A new search begins, not in the headlines this time, but in the dusty hills of Atalaja, a rugged stretch of farmland and abandoned structures just 1.5 kilometers from Praia da Luz. The operation, led by Portuguese police with support from German investigators, focuses on a cluster of properties once inhabited by Christian Bruckner, the man officially named as a suspect in the 2007 disappearance of 3-year-old Madeleine McCann. At the time of her disappearance, Bruckner, now 49 years old, was living nearby. Locals had long referred to the isolated path behind the properties as the Rat Trail, a place rarely used, overgrown, and hidden from view. For investigators, it represents one of the last viable chances to find physical evidence before the suspect's projected release from prison later that year. The operation spans 3 days, June 3 to 5. It is methodical and high-tech. Ground-penetrating radar units sweep beneath the dry soil, searching for disturbances or anomalies. Excavators dig through thick layers of earth. Firefighters assist by draining wells and man-made reservoirs, their hoses snaking over the ground in the summer heat. Teams search old barns, tool sheds, and unused paddocks. The terrain is difficult, but every inch is calmed. Though the police remain tight-lipped about their findings, the urgency is clear. This may be the final opportunity to recover a clue, an item of clothing, biological material, or buried object before options run out. By June 5, the operation winds down quietly. No press conference is held. Portuguese authorities release a brief statement, thanking their German counterparts and confirming the collection of several items, including organic material sent for forensic testing. Unofficial reports mention animal bones among the findings. Nothing is confirmed, and nothing suggests a breakthrough. For many observers, the search echoes the disappointment of the 2023 operation at the Arade Dam, which also ended without conclusive results. The location itself had long intrigued investigators. Bruckner's proximity to the Ocean Club in 2007 placed him within walking distance of the area where Madeleine was last seen. The secluded buildings at Atalaja, remote and rarely visited, seem to offer concealment. But without new forensic evidence, the theory remains speculative. As of June 2025, Madeleine McCann remains missing, and her case unresolved. She would be 21 years old now. And with each passing month, the timeline tightens, the window narrows, and the burden of unanswered truth grows heavier. In June 2025, The Sun releases a documentary titled Madeleine McCann, Inside the Secret Evidence, reigniting global attention on one of the world's most haunting missing person cases. The hour-long program focuses heavily on the 2016 search of a disused factory in Braunschweig, Germany, previously occupied by Christian Bruckner, then already known to authorities for various criminal offenses. The film presents new footage and commentary from investigators, revealing disturbing items recovered during the raid: children's clothing, bikes, preschool toys, 3 unlicensed firearms, and a black balaclava. One suitcase reportedly contained photographs, lists of names and numbers, and a well-worn address book. Although none of these materials have been publicly confirmed to relate directly to the disappearance of 3-year-old Madeleine McCann, their nature led investigators to widen their inquiry into Bruckner's past activities. The documentary also highlights journals and notes recovered from the property, some containing fictional or disturbing scenarios. In one passage, read aloud by a narrator, a man writes about drugging individuals and mentions a child with blonde hair. While these writings cannot be independently verified as autobiographical or factual, prosecutors have acknowledged their relevance to the broader investigation. One name, Enali, is referenced in a passage associated with the phrase, "I'm in paradise," which some interpret as a possible link to the Arade Dam, a location Bruckner was known to frequent and reportedly described with similar words. Another segment focuses on a 2008 encounter at a music festival in Spain. Helge B., a former acquaintance of Bruckner, recounts an unsettling comment allegedly made when Madeleine's case came up in conversation. According to Helge, Bruckner responded cryptically, prompting discomfort. The documentary notes that Helge later testified in unrelated proceedings in Germany, and that records from the 2016 factory raid, specifically insurance documents from a caravan accident in Spain, place Bruckner in the same region during that period. While not constituting direct evidence, the anecdote adds weight to suspicions and has been included in the broader investigative narrative. The factory itself, filmed for the documentary, is presented as eerie and isolated, an image of psychological detachment. Forensic technicians recount the discovery of data storage devices, including hard drives containing graphic imagery. Though none were confirmed to include photos of Madeleine, the presence of such material intensified scrutiny. The documentary acknowledges that, to date, no conclusive forensic link has been established between the factory contents and Madeleine's disappearance. Still, the items, writings, and timeline continue to inform the ongoing international investigation. German authorities, who named Bruckner as a formal suspect in 2020, have since stated they possess evidence supporting the theory that Madeleine may have died shortly after her disappearance. However, no charges have been filed in connection with the case as of mid-2025, and Bruckner continues to deny involvement. The Sun's documentary, while compelling in tone and rich with new visuals, ends on a note of ambiguity. The evidence remains powerful, but incomplete. The puzzle, nearly 2 decades old, still lacks its final piece. In 2025, 18 years after the night that changed everything, Kate and Jerry McCann, now both 57 years old, continue to carry the weight of a loss that time has not erased. Their home in Leicestershire, once filled with the lively chaos of 3 young children, has become a quiet sanctuary, its walls lined with memories of Madeleine, who vanished at the age of 3, and of the twins, Sean and Amelie, now 20. The twins have grown up largely in the shadow of their sister's disappearance, her absence shaping their childhood, in ways even they may never fully understand. For Kate and Jerry, each passing year brings not closure, but the challenge of enduring without answers. When news broke of the June 2025 Atalaja search, they made no public statement. Their silence was not avoidance, it was self-preservation, a familiar defense against the weight of yet another lead that ended in silence. The memory of May 3, 2007, remains etched in their lives. That night in Praia da Luz, Kate walked into their holiday apartment to find Madeleine's bed empty. Her scream, "Madeleine's gone," has echoed across the years, a single moment that marked the beginning of their long descent into uncertainty. At the time, they were just 39 years old, 2 doctors seeking rest, trusting in a routine that would later be dissected across courtrooms, newsrooms, and online forums. The check-in system, the unlocked balcony door, the decision to dine nearby, all became symbols, discussed endlessly, often without compassion. But for Kate and Jerry, those details are part of an internal narrative that plays on loop. What they did, what they thought was safe, and what they would give anything to undo. And yet, they have never stopped searching. Through the Find Madeleine Fund, they've sustained public awareness for nearly 2 decades, distributing posters, funding private investigators, and maintaining a website that still displays Madeleine's image: blonde hair, wide eyes, and a rare coloboma in her right eye, a detail that became iconic. Kate continues to attend annual vigils, sometimes speaking softly into microphones, urging anyone with information to come forward. Jerry remains beside her, quieter, more guarded, his energy focused on the infrastructure of the search. Their resolve is steady, but their faces have changed, etched with lines that speak of exhaustion, endurance, and a quiet kind of heartbreak. Public perception has never been easy. In the early days of the case, Portuguese police expressed suspicion toward the couple, a cloud that, despite no charges ever being brought against them, still lingers in corners of media discourse. Over the years, they have become reluctant public figures, thrust into a role they never asked for. Their friends, the so-called Tapas 7, have remained supportive, but the scrutiny has been relentless, from tabloid headlines to online conspiracy forums. Still, Kate and Jerry have endured, sustained not by certainty, but by something more delicate: the refusal to give up on a daughter who would now be 21 years old. For the McCanns, hope has changed. It is no longer the urgent, bright hope of a rescue. It is quieter now, tempered by time, but no less fierce. It lives in their decision to keep searching, in every statement carefully made, in every birthday marked in silence. It lives in the idea that even if answers never come, Madeleine will not be forgotten, not by them, and not by the world. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann remains one of the most confounding cases of the 21st century, a maze of theories, rumors, and near misses that continue to divide public opinion. As of 2025, no definitive answer has emerged. Theories abound, each raising possibilities while offering no resolution. Was Madeleine abducted, as investigators increasingly believe? The unlocked balcony door, left ajar for periodic checks from the nearby tapas restaurant, lends credibility to that scenario. So does the absence of any sign that the 3-year-old left on her own. Yet no ransom was demanded, no confirmed sightings followed, and no trace, no clothing, no DNA has ever surfaced. One theory that has gained renewed attention involves Christian Bruckner, a convicted sex offender living near Praia da Luz in 2007. He was officially named as a suspect by German authorities in 2020. Several details place him in the area. A phone call registered near the Ocean Club around 7:30 p.m. on May 3, 2007. A vehicle, his Jaguar X6, transferred shortly after Madeleine went missing, and journals recovered years later that include fictional accounts involving a child described in unsettling terms. A comment reportedly made at a 2008 music festival, "She didn't scream," continues to haunt those close to the investigation. Still, despite these circumstantial links, no direct evidence has emerged. No DNA, no confession, and no eyewitness account tie him conclusively to the crime. To some, he remains a prime suspect. To others, he is a problematic figure being pursued more out of urgency than certainty. Beyond the suspect himself, the case has long been entangled with the role of media. The global spotlight, ignited within days of Madeleine's disappearance, turned the small resort town of Praia da Luz into a media epicenter. For months, headlines blurred fact and speculation. The McCanns, Kate and Jerry, then both 39 years old, found themselves scrutinized for their every decision, particularly the choice to leave the apartment door unlocked. While the Find Madeleine campaign helped keep the case visible, it also attracted tabloid sensationalism and misinformation. The 2025 documentary from The Sun, which revisited evidence collected in the 2016 German raid, reignited interest but also prompted criticism. Did it shed light, or did it reframe pain for profit? And did the cycle of global attention help investigators, or complicate their efforts? The actions of law enforcement, especially in the case's early hours, have remained under a harsh spotlight. Portuguese police were widely criticized for not securing the crime scene, for delaying the issuance of roadblocks, and for allowing contamination of potential evidence. Their early suspicion of the McCanns, though later dismissed, cast a long shadow over the investigation. Cooperation between German and Portuguese authorities has since improved, with joint searches in 2023 and 2025 reflecting a more coordinated approach. Still, those searches, despite their scale and precision, produced no breakthrough. And critics ask, has the focus on Bruckner narrowed the field too much? Are other leads being missed? 18 years on, the case remains unsolved. Madeleine McCann, who would now be 21 years old, is still officially listed as missing. And the web of theories, abduction, accident, trafficking, or something still unimaginable, continues to tangle any clear path to truth. The pieces exist, but they have yet to align. The story is no longer just a mystery, it is a mirror reflecting the limitations of law, the reach of media, and the resilience of a family caught in the space between hope and history. As 2025 unfolds, the Madeleine McCann investigation stands at a crossroads. 18 years after her disappearance, the case remains open but fragile, sustained by perseverance, yet haunted by unanswered questions. The UK's Operation Grange, launched in 2011 with the goal of re-examining leads and pursuing viable suspects, continues to operate but with limited resources and diminishing momentum. Its team remains in contact with international counterparts, but the weight of time and public fatigue is undeniable. At the center of current efforts is Christian Bruckner, now 49 years old, whose name has dominated headlines since 2020, when German authorities publicly identified him as a suspect. While prosecutors have stated they believe Madeleine is no longer alive and that Bruckner may be involved, they have also acknowledged the legal hurdles that remain. The evidence compiled over years, digital files recovered in a 2016 raid, journals, GPS data, and a mobile phone connection near the Ocean Club on the night of May 3, 2007, builds a circumstantial case, but lacks the direct, irrefutable proof required for indictment. No body has been recovered, no DNA has been matched, no confession has surfaced. The urgency has grown with the passing months. Bruckner's prison term, served in Germany for unrelated offenses, is expected to end in September 2025. His past, marked by cross-border flight and elusive behavior, makes his release a concern for investigators. German and Portuguese authorities have coordinated recent searches, most notably in June 2025 near Adelaja, close to Bruckner's former residence. The search yielded animal remains and soil samples now undergoing forensic analysis. Early leaks suggest no breakthrough. The previous search in 2023 at the Arade Dam, a site Bruckner once referred to as his little paradise, also ended without definitive results. The challenges are not only legal, but also symbolic. Operation Grange continues under scrutiny, its funding debated in Parliament and its public support wavering. Still, the McCanns, now both 57 years old, continue their mission through the Find Madeleine campaign. They remain hopeful, if guarded, that one call, one piece of evidence, or one confession could yet change everything. Meanwhile, public pressure collides with procedural limitations. Bruckner, through legal representation, maintains his innocence. Reports suggest he has written to contacts, asserting that without forensic evidence or a body, no conviction can be secured. Whether this is defiance or confidence is unclear, but the message is felt. Time is running out. With no new leads confirmed, the possibility of him walking free and potentially fading once more into obscurity looms large. For investigators and the McCann family alike, 2025 may prove to be a year of reckoning. Whether it ends with closure or continued uncertainty depends not only on science and law, but on the emergence of something elusive. The missing piece that has evaded them for nearly 2 decades. Open-ended reflection: imagine Madeleine McCann at 21. Would she carry Kate's quiet strength, or Jerry's unwavering will? Would her laugh echo through university hallways, her future unfolding with each ordinary day, days that were never given to her? For Kate and Jerry McCann, now both 57 years old, those questions are not fleeting thoughts, but daily companions. Their daughter remains frozen in time, a 3-year-old with bright eyes and a distinct coloboma, forever captured in posters, newsreels, and fading photographs on their mantel. Her memory lives in a soft pink blanket, folded and kept with care. The balcony door left unlocked. The 50-meter walk to dinner. The moment Kate cried out, "She's gone," all remain, etched not just into their story, but into the world's. The legacy of the case is complex. It is one of unimaginable loss, but also unrelenting persistence. Through the Find Madeleine Fund, a global network of strangers became a lifeline, sustaining the search year after year. Investigations spanned borders, from the quiet streets of Praia da Luz to courtrooms in Germany, to reservoirs and remote farmland. The name Christian Bruckner casts a long shadow, his past disturbing, his proximity damning in the eyes of some. Yet in 2025, he remains uncharged in this case. Is he the missing piece, or a diversion from another truth still buried? The McCanns live with questions the world has not been able to answer. They do not speak often now, but when they do, it is deliberate. Kate sometimes stands by Madeleine's window, the same view she once believed safe. Jerry stands beside her, their silence filled with what they've lost, and what they still refuse to let go of. As the screen fades, a voice lingers, calm, clear, unwavering. If you know anything, speak now. Then silence. And a final, unspoken question. Will the truth about Madeleine McCann ever be known?